Hello again, and welcome to the next episode of Outcomes. I'm your host, Barrett King, which you've heard me say at this point something like 100 times. I've got a fantastic guest today. I'm really excited about this conversation. Actually, I was on his podcast a little while ago, I think back in February or March. We had a great conversation around around partnerships and SaaS in general and such. Ton here is the founder of the remarkable everything in his life. So author of Remarkable Effect, founder of Value Inspiration, and just like true master of scale. He's an incredible human being, and I'm really excited to have him on the show because frankly, he's got a plethora of expertise in the space. So before I talk everyone's ear off and you say nothing, my friend, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be there.
It's my honor. I think you've got an incredible brand. You've done some really, really great work. And obviously, like, you've done this interesting progression in terms of founding the Value Inspiration and the business that is, obviously wrapped in around that, and then writing a book. And I want to get into that story a little bit. Before we do, first question I ask everyone is, what does partnerships mean to them? And I want to hear your version of it because you've got a little bit of a background in partnerships, but also a bit of a different take because of your experience and exposure across just SaaS in general. So what does partnerships mean to you?
For a lot of companies, at the end, it's the best way to scale to the size that you aspire as a business. And I think a lot of companies out there go the direct way, but if they pay a little bit more attention and do it the right way with partners, they could build such a bigger business.
Yeah, it's funny because that actually is
such a more impactful business. I mean, on my podcast, it's the Tech Entrepreneur on a Mission show. So the typical thing that I'm always asked is like, what is your mission? And if you have to kind of deliver your mission with your own team versus you can deliver your mission through a range of companies that support it, that embrace it, that's of course a way more impactful way.
I think it matters when you highlight that as a core value, to your point, like as the core mission, the core value, the focus of the business. And actually, we can just jump right into it because I'm really curious to have this conversation specifically around that. We were talking about, last we spoke, the idea that you do have a choice. It is a path that you can choose to go direct, to go channel, which I think is frankly a bit obvious. But you've got an interesting perspective in terms of which one may or may not be more valuable, and how they actually intersect, how they overlap in the way that you make your decisions. So the idea being, you could certainly decide whether partnerships first is the right methodology, but perhaps it may be the better outcome for your business and for your customer. So can you kind of lay the stage for us in terms of your background? I don't usually do the context story here, but I think you've got a unique story to tell. So just give us the maybe 30-second or 1-minute version of who you are in terms of the space.
When I started when I not even started my first job, I did an internship at a company called Unit 4 when I was still in school and studying. And it was the project was help us fix our VAR channel, value-added reseller channel. And I did that project, and it became my masterpiece for that last bit of the journey. And then the CEO said, "Okay, now that you know what the problem is, do you want to help fix it?" So that's how I entered into the B2B software space. And that is 30 years ago. Then it evolved partly through the VAR channel and what I've been doing there. But later on, I moved to a different part of the company, and partners became. Well, first of all, we moved to a different segment of the market, more mid-market and up. And partners, got a different role there. And that's also where I've seen how, if you're not dedicated to it, it can almost kill you.
100%. Yeah. The dedication piece is interesting because there's a push right now, naturally so, I think, but that everyone's talking about partnerships as the next core go-to-market. It was marketing, then it was sales, and they're this sort of like the decade of is a fun phrase that a lot of folks are throwing around, the decade of partnerships. But if you're not focused on it, if you're not, in some ways perhaps obsessed with the problem itself, I think it's really easy to get distracted with the idea of partnerships. Oh, we can just work with other companies and they'll sell or service or whatever for our customer. What are some of the core grounding principles that you've seen work well, perhaps in your own experience or from the guests on your own show and just over the tenure that you have, that anchor in the best way to start that process? How do you start going to market with partners? How do you sort of kick off your relationships with those folks? And in particular, the framework, perhaps the guiding principles or the rules that you've seen work really well to ensure you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, it starts with your old mindset around partnerships. If you just see them as, okay, they will sell for us, it will never work. That's so I think also what we discussed on our podcast and on the podcast back in when we talked. But I've seen, for example, one of the things that I've seen at my previous company is this desire to work with partners, and then trying to set something up, and you can even appoint people that are going to be responsible for it, but then not changing it across the whole business. So what you then see is that one side is trying to get things going, and then there's other parts of the business that are almost competing with you. One example is if you want partners that are either selling it or actually implementing your software, but you're not willing to the deals that you close yourself to let them be implemented by partners so that it truly becomes a partnership, forget about it. We had, and I mean, that was for reasons, but our professional services teams had targets to grow their revenue. Well, if you work with a partner channel, that won't work. And partners see that, and they can sniff that.
Yeah. I think there's something interesting about highlighting how, maybe it's just because I'm in the space and you've been around it, so you may agree with this, but how simple that concept is. If you just focus on the relationship and align on the goals, you get a better outcome, you get better results. But I don't disagree that when you look at it in terms of it being uniformly accepted, so from CEO down, we are going to go to market with partners. We will integrate them into our business across sales, marketing, service, et cetera. Yeah. That matters. So that's a great first kind of founding principle. What else have you seen work? What else are some of the guardrails, the guidelines that you've seen as a successful way to make sure that partnerships are successful?
Well, it needs to be, I mean, there needs to be something that makes it 1 + 1 = more than 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, ideally. So there needs to be something that they want, that you have, that makes it going, and the other way around. And then at the end, of course, the most beautiful thing is if it's resulting into something that the market wants desperately. That's actually also one of the principles behind my book, The Remarkable Effect. It needs to create something that people find so valuable that it's worth making a remark about. I think that's the principle in a nutshell.
That's such a good call out. It's funny. I'm smiling for those that can't see me. That's such a simple concept, and yet I'm sure it's missed by so many. Even just the idea, even the statement, the honesty of, we have something they want, they have something we want, and if together we can both create something that the market wants, that they then talk about, then we've met the goal of partnership. Yeah. It's so many people that I talk to in B2B SaaS right now talk about partnerships as a lever towards an outcome, a goal, increase of TAM or a better CAC or whatever it is, and never about the product itself. I think in many ways, by doing this, we provide more value. By doing this, we provide more opportunity. Yeah, that's true. Just is always about the me stuff, which I guess is perhaps a bit American, and that's why I can.
No, it's not American. I know it is equally a disease in Europe.
Yeah, there you go. It's a universal horrid thing.
Exactly.